Dave Filoni started episode 1 of the AHSOKA series with the most awesome title crawl for Star Wars I've seen in a while. Instead of the yellow though, the classic yellow, it uses red font, and it has a New Hope homage on it, this part where it says the Evil Galactic Empire. First off, I have to say that there were 2 episodes, of course, in the debut, but both episodes were kind of slow in my opinion. Not to my liking a lot. Dave Filoni directed episode 1, but it seemed like Ahsoka was struggling as a character. She wasn't popping off as much as, for example, Hu Yang or even Sabine for that matter. I think for me, the one who stole both episodes was Baylan. Baylan is definitely a commanding presence in this series, and man, Ray Stevenson will be terribly missed because you can see that he has an electrifying presence immediately. Ahsoka may be the titular character, of course, but she wasn't the most interesting in these episodes. That may be because we already know a lot about Ahsoka, so we don't really get anything new out of these 2 episodes. However, for those who feel like me, I feel like I should explain myself more because this may be all intentional and aimed to establish that she has a long way to go before she can be her old self again. The problem is that in the animated version, Ahsoka always, even in her darkest days, had this energy, this positive energy about her that was palpable. Even in Tales of the Jedi, you could feel this. Episode 1 opens aboard a New Republic vessel which is transporting Morgan Elsbeth for her trial, as we see in the crawl. Many might be deceived in thinking that this mirrored A New Hope, which it kind of did for the beginning, but immediately afterward I started noticing that it is mirroring the Phantom Menace in actuality. This scene where Baylan in the beginning boards the ship and kills all these New Republic soldiers is actually a diversion, making you think that it's Darth Vader hallway scene and he is moving along convincingly chopping off all these people. However, if you look at it closely from the beginning, when Baylan and Shin get out of their ship, they look like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in the Phantom Menace boarding the Trade Federation ship. Afterwards, both of them, when they're slicing through, again, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan slicing through droids when it seems like negotiations have fallen off. Baylan, in the end, releases Morgan after everybody has been dispatched. Baylan is interested in more information. This gives a chance for Morgan to mention Ahsoka Tano as we get the title crawl. Next, we see Ahsoka on these ancient ruins. This scene got in the feels because it really looked like Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, the puzzles and all these mystical places. But we later learned from Morgan actually that this ancient relic, these ancient ruins, were actually done by the Night Sisters. The Dathomirian Night Sisters, thousands of years ago, had settled on this planet and had left this device, sort of a star map that will come into play later. Before Hu Yang could pick her up, she dispatches a couple of droids as well who have come after her. Later we learned that they are actually working for Morgan Elsbeth and Baylan. In the first episode, we don't see Chopper, but we do see Hera Syndulla. After meeting with her and discussing the difficulty of decoding this device, she leads her to Sabine Wren. On Lothal, we see that Sabine is still the rebellious Mandalorian. As the mural is being presented by Governor Azadi, she doesn't show up. This scene was just a tiny bit cringy in my opinion. It wasn't something that I enjoyed. I pretty much would have preferred for her to make a secret or small-time entrance for nostalgia's sake. In any case, we get the feeling that Sabine is not where she needs to be emotionally. We see her quarters, her Lothcat, but most of all, we see that her mind is still on Ezra. This is where these scenes felt very, very slow-paced in my opinion. It went on and on. They couldn't decide between do we service the new viewers or do we service the old and loyal viewers, so they kind of went in between. Sometimes we get dialogue that is completely unnecessary. Suffice to say, Dave Filoni tried to do a good job with episode 1, getting us into the mood again for the Star Wars Rebels reunion. Ahsoka and Sabine finally meet up again, and Sabine is trying to decode this device, although I don't know how hard it was. I think Ahsoka would have, if she would have tried just a little, she would have decoded it. I mean, she decoded the stones back in the ancient ruins, so this device wasn't that hard either. After she does decode it, she sees that it is pointing to another galaxy aside from their own where they are located, but at that point, Baylan had already sent Shin after her. The droids do steal the device, and when Sabine meets up with Shin down below, Ahsoka is already too late to the party because you can clearly see that Shin Hati is much more skilled than Sabine is at this point in time because she even impaled Sabine Wren just before Ahsoka could arrive. Luckily, she didn't impale her in something, a vital organ or anything like that, so essentially they gave her the Grand Inquisitor treatment, similar to how the Grand Inquisitor got a slicing in the stomach and survived, Sabine immediately is kind of okay in the next episode. While the first episode was getting this device to work and what is it, the second episode focuses more on the reunification of Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren. Sabine definitely wants to come back with Ahsoka, and it's not like Ahsoka is offering, because we can see that Ahsoka has her doubts as well, justifiably. We now see the ritualistic place, the Stonehenge place, that we saw in the trailer. Episode 2 immediately features it. It is on the planet Cetos, and Morgan Elsbeth arrives to investigate what Balon and Shin had discovered. The star map now is unlocked, and Morgan is able to uncover the location of Grand Admiral Thrawn, where he has been banished. Balon referred to that place as the pathway to Peridia. He goes on to explain that the children at the Jedi Temple were the ones to call it that, the pathway to Peridia, pulling the name from old fairy tales and stories. So this might have something more to it. What is the pathway to Peridia? Is Peridia this new galaxy unexplored? But we clearly see something more than just Morgan obsessed with Thrawn. We see that she is kind of communicating with him in some way or another. She even says that Thrawn is calling her across time and space. This, of course, could have been a reference to the world between worlds. We know by the insignia that we see around them, this kind of gives you the world between worlds vibes. So this might not be a portal to the galaxy, this might be a portal to that place that we saw in Star Wars Rebels. But again, the most interesting part out of both these episodes were, for me, Balon and kind of Shin. We see that Shin is still an apprentice. She still doesn't have that confidence that Balon exudes. Where she is doubtful, Balon assures her that once they find Thrawn and put him in a leadership place, they will have power like she's never seen before. It was also funny to see those Andor moments. I mean, Ahsoka and Hera discovered together with Sabine by one of the droids that was captured that they were manufactured in Corellia, and they go to investigate there. They discover Morak and another droid. Some former loyal imperialists are still working for Morgan, trying to re-establish the Empire again, working secretly for Morgan Elsbeth as she is trying to bring back Thrawn to greatness. Right off the bat, we see the political intrigue. At first, we don't know if these workers, former Imperial workers, are loyal. Then we understand that they are still Imperial sympathizers, secretly working to bring it back. So it kind of shed light to what Andor was trying to do much more competently. Of course, in this series, it was just shining a small dim light into a bigger problem. One thing we get out of all of this is the location of Cetos, where it is Chopper, in fact, with the help of Hera Syndulla, that puts a tracking device on one of the ships that is heading for Cetos and for Morgan Elsbeth. Again, everybody was very, very hyped for Huyang to be back, and he and Balon, for me, stole the show. Ahsoka wasn't that interesting in and of herself. Sabine wasn't that interesting either, to me at least. Huyang and Balon were the stars of these two episodes. You can see that Huyang's dry, logical sense of humor was there, and I was constantly chuckling with his commentary, especially when it came to the relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine, where in the end we see that they reconcile, and Ahsoka even calls Sabine apprentice. Before the episode ends, we get a mention of the Eye of Sion. Now, the Eye of Sion, where Morgan Elsbeth headquarters seems to be, Sion was actually Darth Sion, an ancient Sith Lord that we get to meet in the KOTOR 2 video game, Knights of the Old Republic. In fact, you fight him. He is a ferocious and almost immortal Sith Lord that feeds on anger. Right now, I don't know if it was a direct reference, but it definitely was, in my opinion. Dave Filoni did put it in there as a cute nod to the Knights of the Old Republic lore. We are slowly seeing Darth Revan getting pulled into canon, now Sion, so things seem very interesting for the Star Wars future. In the end, I was really fascinated again by the Balon character, because we see that he definitely has some mercy inside him. Yes, he is a villainous character, what we see a Jedi mercenary at the very least, because he is working for profits for Morgan. But when Morgan wants him to kill Ahsoka, he seems sad, and he even expresses that there are so few Jedi that it will be a pity to kill her. Keep your eyes on Balon, because we don't know where he might end up by the end of this series. He might turn altogether. It's going to be pretty interesting to see his character arc. So thank you guys so much for watching, and leave all your comments down below.